Hey everyone, Chinese companies and the US have yet to come to an agreement that would allow Honor and Huawei to continue releasing devices with Google services on them. However, that hasn't stopped them from releasing devices at all. The latest phone from Honor has flagship-grade internals. However, is it more than the sum of its parts, and if it ever does come to the West, should you get it? I'm Angie for GS Marina, and this is our Honor V30 Pro review. The Honor V30 Pro is a glass sandwich with an aluminum frame and a back with a pretty but not uncommon blue gradient. The frosted texture feels velvety and the phone picks up fingerprints a little slower than most other glass phones. However, it's also incredibly slippery and the camera bump sticks out a little bit, so I'd recommend that you use the case in the box. Honor also hasn't said anything about an IP rating or what sort of glass they're using, so the extra protection wouldn't be amiss. Whether you use it or decide to forgo it, this phone is a bit of a mammoth. It's wide, thick, and heavy, and one-handed use can be a bit difficult even with Magic UI's gestures. Both the V30 Pro and the regular V30 are this size, so if you like compact devices better, you should keep this in mind. As far as biometrics go, however, the V30 Pro has one of the fastest fingerprint readers I've ever used on its side, and if you use it, you'll probably forget your phone has a lock screen. As for the screen itself, this one is a nearly 6.6-inch IPS LCD with a hole punch in the corner and some pretty thin bezels. While this looks modern and fashionable, it wasn't the best choice for a display because there are some really noticeable halos next to the top and bottom bezels around the punch hole. If you can ignore that, the screen is good, but not amazing. Whites tend to skew towards blue and colors tend to be oversaturated in vivid mode. And in normal mode, while color accuracy is significantly better, brightness fell from 534 nits to 494 nits. Honestly, the color accuracy is forgivable. Whether you like the screen depends on whether you can forgive the halos next to the bezels. As far as the other side of media consumption goes, this phone includes a headphone jack adapter in the box, and sound with wired headphones is average. Surprisingly, while the V30 Pro has Bluetooth 5.1, it doesn't support most hi-fi audio codecs like aptX and LDAC. Where the Honor V30 Pro really shines is battery life. With a 4100 mAh battery, it scored an excellent 102 hours in our endurance tests. Charging was even more impressive because the phone got from 0 to 100% in 50 minutes, making it one of the fastest charging solutions around. The V30 Pro is quite fast. It sports a Kirin 990 5G chipset, which is an upgraded version of the vanilla Kirin 990 found in 4G phones like the Mate 30 Pro. As a result, the V30 Pro outperformed the Mate 30 Pro in multiple benchmarks. It's also one of the only chipsets that has an integrated 5G modem embedded, so if you happen to have a 5G plan, you'll probably have better battery life than non-integrated solutions. The Honor V30 Pro has Android 10 with Magic UI 3.0. But as I mentioned, it has no official support for Google services. All the same, we did manage to get the Play Store up and running, although the loophole which we use might be patched in future releases by either Honor or Google. Magic UI hasn't changed much from previous versions. Mostly the visuals have been freshened up. The navigation menu looks a little more modern and less cramped, and the gesture-based navigation seems to be the same as before. The biggest change seems to be a new system-wide dark mode. While the dark theme looks cool and reduces the strain on your eyes, the battery life won't benefit from this feature since it is an LCD. Moving on to the triple camera setup, this phone packs quite the punch. The main cam has an f1.6 aperture and a 40 megapixel sensor that's the same one that you'll find on the Mate 30 Pro. It uses an RYYB arrangement instead of the standard RGB matrix, which is supposed to help with light sensitivity. Unsurprisingly, daylight photos from this camera were nothing short of flagship-worthy, with excellent colors, dynamic range, nice contrast, and plenty of detail. The 8-megapixel telephoto cam offers 3 times optical zoom and is optically stabilized. Photos taken with the telephoto look fuzzier than the main cams and have a narrow dynamic range. Otherwise, color reproduction is similar and there's plenty of detail. The ultra-wide camera uses a more standard 12-megapixel sensor with an f2.2 aperture. Sadly, in contrast to the main cam, ultra-wide photos are much softer and have an unspectacular dynamic range. In low light, the 40-megapixel camera has an impressive dynamic range even without resorting to night mode, and good detail, sharpness, and colors. Night mode brightens shadows and makes objects pop out more. It's not very aggressive in comparison to some rival implementations, and we recommend that you use it in almost every low-light situation. The telephoto is more of a mixed bag, and here you really shouldn't rely on it without night mode. In general, photos look good, but getting a proper shot is challenging because you have to stand still for 5 or more seconds so the software can take enough images to stack. The ultra-wide camera was a mess. While colors and dynamic range were okay, photos were soft and lacking detail. Night mode doesn't help as much, and we recommend sticking to the main cam in the evenings. As far as videos are concerned, you can shoot 4K at 30 FPS on the V30 Pro, and unlike many phones, you can use both the main and the ultra-wide camera. Sadly, you still can't take 4K video with the telephoto. In general, 4K footage from the main cam looks sharp with no noise and good dynamic range. Strangely enough, moving objects in the distance lack color, and as they get closer, colors progressively start to pop up. This was the same in both 4K and 1080p, so we theorize that it has something to do with the phone's noise suppression algorithm. Honor is marketing the ultra-wide camera as a cine lens, but while the lens itself is ultra-wide, it's not as wide as other such cameras on the market. Still, it performed quite well with nice colors, dynamic range, and no noise. We didn't see the decolorization issue, but the footage was softer and the autofocus seemed to be failing at times. On the front of the phone are two selfie cameras, a 32-megapixel main shooter and an 8-megapixel one for ultra-wide shots. Selfies in the main cam weren't particularly sharp, but we're happy with the overall quality. In low light, they're much softer, but at least there's a dedicated night mode for really dark environments. The ultra-wide snapper offers similar rendition, but it offers less detail and it's a bit on the soft side. Even if the Honor V30 Pro were to hit stores outside of China, it needs to be released really soon in order for it to stand a chance because it's facing some pretty tough competition. It has a good battery life, a good chipset, and amazing camera performance, but the screen is a little lacking, and the lack of Google services for the foreseeable future, well, that's a huge problem. Unless you're in China and you don't need Google and the Play Store, this is not a phone that you should or even can buy. Hopefully the political situation evolves, but until then, this is a phone that's probably not going to get a lot of Western attention. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button down below, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I'll see you guys next time.